Welcome back to Factual America, where we dive deep into the stories shaping our great nation and the world beyond. Today, we're tackling a topic that's heating up more and more each year, especially as headlines warn about shifting global power. The growing alliance between Russia and China, is it a threat to America? We're going to break down just what's really happening between these two powerful countries, what it means for the future of the United States, and how this alliance could impact your daily life, whether you realize it or not. Grab a cup of coffee, hit that like button, and stay with us, because the stakes couldn't be higher. Let's begin by looking back. Just a few decades ago, the idea of Russia and China being close partners would have sounded absurd. Not only did these two countries spend much of the Cold War at odds, at times even skirmishing along their shared border, but deep distrust and ideological differences ran through their societies. Yet in the past decade, we've watched these two authoritarian giants move closer together, seemingly setting aside their differences. How did they go from icy rivals to strategic allies? The story actually goes back to post-Soviet Russia. After the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the USSR, Russia found itself isolated, reeling from a weakened economy and internal chaos. Meanwhile, China was on its rapid ascent, reforming its markets, attracting Western factories, and fueling a manufacturing miracle. But by the early 2000s, both countries faced immense pressure. From a unipolar America and a Western-led world order, they each saw an opportunity in the other, a potential check on U.S. power. While the West hoped globalization would tame both Moscow and Beijing, it actually encouraged them to find common ground against shared adversaries, namely us. Fast forward to today, and that cooperation is not just talk, it's official policy. Russia and China have signed hundreds of agreements together, covering everything from energy pipelines to joint military drills. In 2022, their so-called no-limits partnership stunned Western analysts just days before Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This was no accident. Putin and Xi weren't just shaking hands for the cameras. They were declaring to the world, we're partners now, and together we can push back against America's influence. Here's the twist. While the mainstream media loves to talk about the rivalry between Russia and China, they rarely mention how their alliance is built on far more than just shared interests. It's also about shared grievances. Both regimes believe the United States is out to undermine them. From supporting opposition in Hong Kong and Ukraine, to NATO's expansion in Europe, to the U.S. presence in the South China Sea feeling cornered, they see each other as natural allies to break out. Let's look specifically at energy and economics. One of the key pillars of this alliance is trade. For Russia, sanctions from the West have cut off access to its traditional markets. But China, hungry for oil, gas, and raw materials to fuel its industrial machine, has stepped in as a lifeline. Massive pipelines now cross the Siberian wilderness, carrying Russian gas straight to China, bypassing Europe. And Russia, for its part, has become one of China's top arms suppliers. This isn't just about making money, it's about rewriting the rules of international commerce to set up an alternative to the dollar-dominated system we rely on. And it doesn't stop there. Russia and China are working to undermine America's dominance of global currencies. They've set up their own trading systems, sidestepping SWIFT and American banks. There's ongoing talk of developing a joint digital currency and massive investments in gold reserves. The bottom line? They're preparing for a world where the dollar no longer rules the roost, one in which America's economic leverage could be dramatically weakened. Now let's talk military might. This is where things get even more concerning for America's future security. Just a few years ago, joint military exercises between Russia and China were rare and mostly symbolic. Today, we see warships from both nations patrolling the Pacific, conducting live fire drills and even flying strategic bombers together near U.S. allied territories like Japan and South Korea. It's a clear message. They're not just preparing for war, they want us to know about it. Here's something the mainstream won't often tell you. This alliance is as much psychological warfare as it is military. By showing unified strength on America's doorstep, Russia and China are sending a signal to our allies. Don't count on America always having your back. This uncertainty could fracture long-standing U.S. partnerships and tempt countries to look elsewhere for security guarantees. In other words, the Russia-China alliance doesn't need to win a war. They just need us to lose faith. But what keeps Putin and Xi glued together? Well, they share more than a desire to challenge America. Both are obsessed with maintaining tight control at home. They see open societies like ours as a threat, not just to their power, but to their vision for the world. So while we promote human rights and democratic values abroad, they back each other up, vetoing resolutions at the United Nations, supporting dictatorships, and cracking down on dissent with surveillance tech and secret police. Let's drill down on technology, because here's where the alliance might be more dangerous than we realize. China is leading the world in artificial intelligence, surveillance, and cyber capabilities. Russia has time and again proven itself at disinformation campaigns and hacking operations. Together, they could mount coordinated cyber attacks on U.S. infrastructure, election systems, or financial markets. You might remember recent stories about ransomware attacks or the chaos during election time. Imagine what could happen if Russia and China worked together. Before you shrug and say, well, aren't they just strange bedfellows? Don't they distrust each other too? Of course, there are limits to their friendship. Historically, Russia is wary of becoming China's junior partner and losing influence in Asia. There's tension over Siberia, fears about Chinese encroachment, and the uncomfortable reality that, by almost every measure, China is now the senior partner, richer, more populous, and increasingly more technologically advanced. In private, Russian officials worry about dependence on China, just as many Chinese strategists distrust Russia's reliability after centuries of border spats. But necessity, not trust, is the glue that holds them together. In the face of what they perceive as Western encirclement, the logic of the enemy of my enemy is my friend prevails. For now, mutual benefit outweighs mutual suspicion, and both Beijing and Moscow are betting that by pooling their strength, they can rewrite the global rules at America's expense. That brings us to a critical question. How does this alliance threaten American interests right now and in the future? The answer isn't just about tanks, planes, or missiles. It's about influence over trade, technology, alliances, and even the way information flows across borders. A world where Russia and China set the rules is a world less free, less prosperous, and less open to American influence. Let's bring it closer to home. Think about the supply chains Americans rely on: microchips from Taiwan, energy from global markets, manufactured goods from across Asia. What happens if Russia and China coordinate to squeeze or punish countries that support America? Or if they launch influence campaigns that amplify division and distrust within our own borders, something we've already seen in recent years? The threat isn't just military, it's economic, political, and cultural. But is America powerless here? Absolutely not. In fact, history shows that alliances built on convenience, not real trust, tend to fray when pressure is applied. Remember, Hitler and Stalin signed a pact before World War II. How did that turn out? We should never underestimate the natural rivalry between Russians and Chinese, or America's own capacity to innovate and adapt. So what can America do to respond? First, we must resist the urge to play their game by turning inward or trying to cut ourselves off from the rest of the world. Instead, we double down on what's always made us strong: our alliances, our values, and our ability to lead by example. That means standing up for freedom in Taiwan and Ukraine, strengthening ties with Europe and Asia, and securing our supply chains so no single country can hold us hostage. Second, we need to fight the war of information, not just weapons. That means supporting real journalism, building up cyber defenses, and calling out propaganda when we see it, at home and abroad. Americans need to know what's at stake, and we can't let our enemies divide us with lies and deception, whether online or in the media. Third, we have to keep innovating. The West led the 20th century because we were first in industry, technology, and higher education. Now we need to reinvest in research, STEM education, manufacturing, and emerging technologies like AI, quantum computing, and space exploration, so we keep our edge and don't fall behind. But above all, we need unity. The Russia-China alliance thrives when America is divided. Whether it's political infighting, distrust of government and media, or cultural battles that pit us against one another, our adversaries benefit while we pay the price. We beat the Soviets not just with weapons, but with unity, hope, and confidence. Let's remember that lesson. And finally, let's not kid ourselves. The rise of a Russia-China alliance is a clear and present danger to our way of life, but it's a challenge America can absolutely overcome if we stay vigilant and work together. The key is recognizing what's at stake before it's too late. So what do you think? Is the partnership between Russia and China the greatest threat to America today? Or have we faced even bigger challenges before? What should America do to counter this alliance, and how will it affect life right here at home? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to suggest what other topics you want us to cover in future episodes. Here at Factual America, your voice matters.